Friday Fluff recap. What are the top headlines for the week? Some interesting things going on out there. Let's get into it. Stocks fell for the third week in a row, with major U.S. indexes posting their sharpest weekly decline since March 2020, early in the pandemic. So the NASDAQ dropped nearly 8%, the S&P 500 fell almost 6%, and the Dow gave up nearly 5% as investors worried about everything from rising interest rates to geopolitical conflict in the Ukraine. You know, the technology stocks, underperformance by technology stocks weighed heavily again on the NASDAQ as the index on Wednesday fell into correction, a decline of at least 10% from the recent high. The sell-off continued the next 2 days, and so at Friday's close, the index was more than 14% below a record high that it achieved in mid-November. So moving on to Bitcoin. I keep buying Bitcoin and I'm not stopping. Bitcoin stumbled. The price of Bitcoin dropped more than 10% for the week, with most of the decline coming on Friday as the cryptocurrency fell below 40,000 for the first time in nearly 6 months. In early November, Bitcoin traded as high as we all know at 67,000. I'm buying now more than ever. So keep buying Bitcoin. I'm a big fan. So moving on, the Fed. The Fed's nimble approach signals a wild ride ahead. Keep calm and be nimble. That's an oxymoron for all ages. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said Wednesday the central bank would be nimble when it comes to monetary policy and the path of interest rate increases this year. The markets did anything but keep calm, as we all know. So we're looking at some hikes, according to the Fed. The Fed clearly suggests interest rates will start to rise in March, which has long been expected. But, but that was pretty much all they said in terms of specifics. So is it time to worry about the housing market affordability in the United States? The fact that mortgage rates are starting to rise should come as no surprise. After all, the Fed recently signaled that it would raise rates between 2 to 4 times in 2022, and bond yields and mortgage rates are likely to follow suit. So what is surprising, though, is how quickly rates have risen, and it's gone up a little bit. So look at this current 30-year mortgage rate chart. The housing market affordability is a metric that measures the ability of an average home buyer to afford an average home in the United States. This metric can be measured a few different ways, but there are generally 3 primary components to measuring this. Number 1 is median home price. Number 2 is interest rates, and number 3 is median income. So look at this 30-year mortgage chart going back to the 1970s. So take a look at that. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. It's going to be a wild ride this year in 2022, that's for sure, as far as the housing. Moving on, Bill Ackman's in the news again. Bill boy is at it again. I talked about Netflix last week. Netflix gets some attention from Bill Ackman's Pershing Square. Netflix stock is down nearly 50% from its November peak, but it got a jolt late Wednesday after hedge fund manager Bill Ackman announced his capital management had bought roughly 3.1 million shares since last Friday, making it a top 20 holder. Top 20, Bill's in the top 20. Ackman said in a letter to the investors that last week's sell-off in the stock after the company reported disappointing subscriber numbers and short-term guidance created an opportunity to acquire Netflix at an attractive validation. So his company stakes, building coincides with a period of extreme market swings. The pay for the position purging, they unwound a majority of its interest rate hedge for proceeds of roughly $1.25 billion, the letter said to investors. Representatives of his company and Netflix had no comment. Netflix shares rose roughly about 5.2% after hours. So let's keep an eye on Netflix. Tesla, Elon Musk says the company is not making any new models. Tesla won't be releasing new models this year and isn't working on a $25,000 cheap car right now, according to CEO Elon Musk, who blamed the continuing chip shortage as some problems with production. It will focus on driverless, vehicle tech development and increasing production at existing factories. Driverless makes me a little nervous. Done a little reading on that. So the company reported earnings of roughly $2.54 a share in the fourth quarter from $17.7 billion in sales. Operating profit came in $2.6 billion and free cash flow at roughly $2.8 billion. So Wall Street expected earnings per share at roughly $2.36 from revenue of $17.1 billion. So what's next for Tesla? The analysts expect Tesla to deliver nearly 1.5 million vehicles this year. As of the fourth quarter, it was making an annualized rate of more than 1.22 million vehicles. Elon got snubbed from Biden administration. They met with GM and the other EV makers. He's really kicking it out, the production. So Samsung research issued warnings of supply chain challenges across their lines. Samsung Electronics said Thursday it would aim for a larger share of the smartphone market in 2022, but they got the supply chain issues like a lot of other people, and announced a 53% increase in operating profit to the highest level in 4 years during the last 3 months of 2021. So they're up in their stake, taking some risk. Moving on, mask. Free N95 masks showing up at pharmacy stores. Retailers have started receiving the 400 million free N95 masks. When will it end? To give out to people as part of a play by President Joe Biden. Masks will be available in coming weeks for participants in the federal pharmacy vaccine program, including Albertsons, Costco, CVS, Kroger, Publix, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and Walmart. So moving on from the mask, Abbott Laboratories expects $2.5 billion in COVID test sales, making money off those tests. Abbott Laboratories, maker of the brand now rapid antigen test, reported fourth quarter earnings and sales that beat Wall Street estimates, of course, and expects $2.5 billion in COVID-19 test sales in fiscal 2022. So the Defense Department signed a $306 million contract. $306 million contract for Abbott to supply tests for the government's mail order program. That's the news for the week. This keeps coming out, and it's going to be an interesting 2022. It's just getting started. That's the recap. Have a great weekend.